my goodness. Welcome everyone to the community here with eXp Realty. We're so excited you're joining us today. I'm traveling, so this is a different background for me, I know. But I wanted to let you guys know that we have an unbelievably special presentation today because one epic coach, mentor, trainer, John Sellers, is bringing in two of his best buddies who are top producing agents, multiple icon award winning, selling more houses than you can possibly imagine. We're going to learn their story today, and I'm super excited for that. I'm going to get myself out of the way here in a second. So with no further ado, let me bring up my brother from another mother, John Sellers, here down in Southern Oregon, beautiful Southern Oregon. How are things today, John?
Beautiful and hot. Beautiful and hot.
I
A
know
little bit
that
of
we're in New
smoke and a
Mexico.
little bit of smoke to add to it.
Oh, well, you can't win them all, but that's all right. So you've got an incredible lineup today, and so tell us a little bit about what we're gonna do
So
today.
basically, guys, what we've got is I want to thank all of you for being here. And we've got I've asked Jesse and Marco, who are both succeeding at a really high level right now. They're multiple icons, young guys that have been tearing it up for quite a while now. And I just asked them to come on and just let me ask them some questions and walk through and find out a little bit more about them, a little bit about their story, and then a little bit about what they're doing and what they've been doing and what some of their challenges are and some things we can learn from. And so we're just going to have a question and answer here, and hopefully this will be dynamic and as we go through it. So let's go ahead and bring them on, Jeff. We'll get all three of us. Awesome. So, hey guys, thanks for being here. Marco, go ahead and unmute yourself just so you don't forget. So thanks guys again for being here. I truly appreciate it. Marco's up in I always say Salem, but you're really north of that, aren't you, for the most part?
In Woodburn, so maybe like 15 minutes.
But you're covering Salem, Portland, and Vancouver now, am I correct? And then Jesse's out of Cottage Grove, which is just south of Eugene. And he pretty much covers all of Lane County and which would include Eugene, a little bit north. And then you're covering over the coast as well now, Jesse, between you and your team?
All the way down to Bandon. Oh.
Great. So both these guys have teams, but what I want you to know is they still track their own personal production. So when I talk about their numbers, they're still doing deals themselves, quite a few of them individually. So we'll talk a little bit maybe about the teams as we go, but really what we're talking about is their individual production as we go. So guys, the first question I really have is I'd ask you to share a little bit about your upbringing, your background, and how you got into real estate. Either one of you can start, whoever'd like.
Jesse, I can start. So I come from the auto industry, so I used to sell cars since the age of 15. I moved over to real estate exactly 5 years ago. But at the age of 15, I started, I think, as a lot boy. So I knew nobody in the car industry, so I went into a car dealership and I asked for a job, and someone eventually gave me a job. And I was washing cars. I will never forget this. It was $300 a week, and I would get paid every Saturday for 8 hours of work for 6 days a week. So it was like $50 a day. But it went from lot boy to car sales to finance to general manager. So I did that for 10 years, and after that, I moved over to real estate.
And so how long have you been in real estate now?
5 years, full time, 3 years.
Okay. And did you grow up in that area? What kind of educational background do you have?
I just did high school.
Okay, so no specialized degree. You don't have your PhD or anything like that.
I signed up for college. My mom wanted me to go to school, and I went in. I remember going in the first day. It was just me and my best friend, and I went in there, and I was all signed up, ready to go, but I wanted to work for commission, so I drove out of the parking lot on the first day and went to work. Um,
So
so
what drove you to go to work at 15 on a car lot? Why did you do that? What was your thought process?
realistically, I just wanted to make money at that age, and
So you wanted a little extra money, then your family wasn't paying for everything, is what you're telling me.
no. I grew up with just my mom, so I wanted to take care of mom, which I've been able to for the last few years.
So you didn't grow up rich, is what you're saying.
No.
Things weren't handed to you. Okay, great. And how old are you now? Just so
27.
he's a whole 27, y'all. So Okay, awesome. Thank you very much. Jesse, share a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so similar to Marco, I came from the car sales background. So, I mean, I started my first business at 10, rebuilding small engines like red lawn motors and push mowers and selling them on Craigslist. And then I sold my first car when I was 12, sold over 300 by my junior year of high school. I always like jokingly tell people, but it's probably real that I sold more 1998 Honda Accords than anybody in the state of Oregon. Um, and so got into that, really got kind of addicted to the game of it. Similar to Marco, didn't have anything given to me. First generation self-employed, both my parents, below, middle class, lower middle class. If I wanted something, I had to, earn it myself. And so it was a huge blessing, but definitely wasn't an easy childhood. But my mom always says I sold my childhood and I grew up quick, but it gave me a pretty big advantage. And I enjoyed being able to provide for myself and have, what if I wanted something, I could earn it and make it happen.
So you've told me this story about you were selling cars before you could drive a car. So how did that work? Like your dad was driving you to look at it?
I mean, I'd pay legally licensed adults for the longer, drives down. Most of my cars came from Eugene and they were coming down to Cottage Grove. But I mean, I drove my fair share of times without having a license. So but got to make it happen.
That idea, he tells me all the time, like just buying stuff off Craigslist and then reselling it, right? And he couldn't even drive a car at that point. So creativity has been part of it all along. So guys, what are the one or two things that you really attribute to your success right now that you're having?
I would say for myself, I always tell myself in the morning or whenever I head into the offices, I always like to do right by people. I'm helping people. That's what I tell myself. That way, I don't get caught up on the transactions or the money or the commissions. It's just if I do right by people, I feel like it's just a blessing that comes back my way.
I think for me, I think for me, it's like one of the things I'd attribute is that I was willing to put in a lot of hours, and I still do. I mean, my wife's got me tamed a little bit more now. I can't be my full workaholic self, but it's something where early in my career and even to this day, like I'm always focused on growing and expanding and putting in more hours. And I think that starting my career with 70, 80 hour weeks minimum every day, 7 days a week, I think really gave me a head start and really helped me build my book of business. It pays dividends to this day.
But Jess, you have a little bit. I mean, you're a really morning ritual guy, aren't you?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Talk
Every day,
about that.
I'm very predictable. All of the people that are close to me are like, you are one of the most predictable people I've ever met. And it's like, if you want to know my schedule, you'll find me at the same place every day. Man of routine, same habit. I mean, for a year, I had Hawaiian time, this little like lunch place for a year straight. Every day at 11, they'd have my order ready. Like just man of habit, like just get it done. So I like the
And
routine.
you're one of those early morning guys, aren't you?
The morning is like my special time. I don't know. Wouldn't give it up for anything.
So tell me what that looks like in the morning. Just share with me what kind of your
Typically
schedule.
getting up anywhere between 4:30 and 5 and then going straight to the gym. And then I get back. And it's nice because for me, there's not really a moment, like even while we've just been on this call, I've got 4 or 5 missed phone calls. And so, but like during that time in the morning, there was a while there I was getting carried away, but my doctor told me I needed to sleep more because I mean, I was like getting up earlier and earlier. I think the earliest I was getting up was like 3 in the morning. Like I just loved it. Like that time in the morning where nobody interrupted me. I could go to the office and work. Like if I got done, I get to the office like 7, 6:30, but nobody's bothering me. It helps me set up for my day, like completely my time.
And do you review your goals or anything like that in the morning?
Yeah.
Is there
Yeah,
a
I
ritual
meditate
behind
when I
that?
get back from the gym. I meditate and I like look at my goals. I reflect on that, and then I do affirmations pretty religiously. So
Okay. What about you, Marco? I don't know if you're a morning ritual guy or not, or if you're an early guy or
Not
not.
as early as Jesse, but yeah, I'm up and going. I wake up like at 6. I'm up and going out of my house no later than like 7:30. And I try to get all the stuff done that are going to bother me throughout the day that are not real estate. Just get them out of the way, and then because I do go to the office every day, and once I get to work, it's just like it's going over my deals, lead gen time, and yeah, there's no. I try to not get distracted once I get to the office.
So what do you mean by that? By you're getting the stuff out of the way in the morning? I mean, the things that would distract you.
Like anything that's like personal stuff, like paying bills or if I have to go to the store, just getting the quick things out of the way. That way, I don't leave my office. Once I get there, I try to be there at least 5, 6 hours at a time.
That's something you guys talked about. And it's interesting because I've said this to people is that people get into real estate and they're self-employed. And all of a sudden they've got the full day to themselves. And what I've noticed is all of a sudden their family and friends say, "Oh, I really need to get the dog taken to the vet and I can't do it. Can you do it?" And agents say, "Oh yeah, I got free time. I'll go do it." Right? Or when you have a job, you're scheduling your doctor's appointments at 8:30 in the morning or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And instead, when people become self-employed, they're, oh, okay, 1 o'clock, that'll work. And then they get in there and they, let's say it's 12:30, they don't have lunch yet. So they get there early and then the doctor's always late, right? So it's 1 o'clock doctor's appointment or 12:30 doctor's appointment. Doctor finally gets them in at 1. It takes an hour, 45 minutes. Now it's 1:45. They say, well, I might as well go to lunch. Okay, I go to lunch. Now it's 3 o'clock. And they go, the day's already done. I'm just going to head home. And the whole day's gone, basically. And they say it was a work day, but they didn't really work. And that's one of the things that I've seen with these two is that, when they're working, they're working. When they're playing, and they really understand the difference. And you just pointed it out right there, Marco, is like, don't be deceived by what is when I'm working or when I'm not working, So once your day starts, guys, what's the typical day look like after that? Do you have a process or how does it look? Do you do certain things in the morning versus certain things in the afternoon? Just kind of walk me through that.
Personally, I like to get into the office. I meet with the staff and I go over every single under contract so we get those out of the way. And I light out the fires that need to be dealt with. And then I try to do lead gen at least 3 to 5 times a week, 3 to 4 times a week.
And that's a scheduled block of time every day?
Yeah, it's always scheduled. And I've been trying to incorporate showings in the afternoons, listing appointments in the afternoons, just because it takes less energy.
We've talked about that, haven't we?
Talked about that, yep.
Yeah, that's one of the things we've talked about through time is that, and I've said this to agents, is really, guys, like, it's hard to keep our focus for a long period of time, right? So showing houses and going to listing appointments, it's easy to do those because you have to. And most realtors get energy being around other people.
Yeah.
So I've often said to people, like, do not go to closings in the morning. If they want to go to them, if they schedule them in, you review the paperwork and you go, if they want you to be there, it's in the afternoon. Inspections, if they want you to be there or you're going to go to the finals, it's in the afternoon. And things get scheduled around that, because what I found is, and Marco, you're hitting on the head, is if you have to go to inspection in the morning, what's the likelihood you're going to do your prospecting in the afternoon?
Doesn't get done.
It doesn't get done, does it? We all have this great idea because we know when's the best time to actually reach people at home? 4 to 6 o'clock, right? Dinner time. But how often do we get distracted at that point and not able to make those calls? So the point is, do them when you can, not necessarily when it's most effective. Because doing it's going to be most effective. What about you, Jesse? What does your typical day look like?
Like Marco's saying, I do my appointments in the afternoon. The earliest I'll schedule listing appointments 11. That way I still have my time in the morning, because that morning time for me is crucial. Like today, I got to the office at 7 and I already got one of the listings out of the way. It's all ready to go. My assistant's working on getting all the details buttoned up. But so I do like the prospecting in the morning. So I used to prospect every single day, but as my pipelines have filled, my goal to prospect 3 days a week. So usually Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And then Tuesday, Thursday, we do our team meetings in the morning. But it's really like a kind of a routine, and it's really paid off. Early in my career, I've heard a couple of coaches tell me that like the best businesses are boring, but like that's something where earlier in my career I'd go, yeah, John, I'll be at your house. Want me there at 8:30? I'll be there. And then I just kind of be that star realtor going to all these different appointments and trying to like people please and work with their schedule. But as I've grown in my business, I like have them fit into my schedule, and it works perfectly, but it also allows me to do what's important, because you can easily get distracted and not get results. So at the end of the day, you got to keep filling that pipeline. So it's important.
I know when I met Jesse, and I don't know, gosh, it's been 4 or 5 years now, right, Jess?
Yeah.
And that was one of the things we talked about a lot in our coaching sessions, wasn't it? It's like, get some consistency into what you're doing, because it calms your life down a bit. And what I found too is that a lot of people aren't as busy as you, and they think that gives them more flexibility. And what did you find when I mean, you've had slow periods over the last couple of years. Um, it was easy to start breaking those rituals, wasn't it?
Yeah, totally. And I mean, in a lot of ways, like you said, I think a lot of agents, they get energy from being around people. It's fulfilling, the demand of, oh, this client wants me to meet them, then I'll just kind of accommodate to their schedule and we'll make sure that but at the end of the day, it ends up hurting you more than the potential benefit. And so I think just having the discipline around it is so important because yeah, you might be able to get away with it during the slow periods, but then I'm a big believer that if you do that during the slow periods, it's not sustainable to grow, and so you inhibit your growth. And then that if you have a model that you can actually like scale with, so that you're still getting your prospecting done, but you're doing all your appointments, then that model will help you'll grow into it rather than have to get rid of those bad habits as you get busier.
And what does your prospecting look like?
Um, well, primarily at the beginning of my career was for sell by owners and expireds. I still do for sell by owners and expireds, but a lot of times now it's like prospecting for my VIP clients or like the bigger fish. So people that are referring deals. So like an attorney, we've got a client that's a district attorney here in Lane County that's referred me a ton of business and like asking for those referrals. And so more building the relationships that we have while also making, new relationships as well. So
Marco, what does your prospecting look like?
I've never done FISBOs or expireds. That's usually just my sphere and just people around me. If you set up your database or your CRM correctly, you should be able to just lock in, and there's always things for you to do, people to call. It's just I can spend 8 hours a day prospecting if you use it correctly.
And so I love when you're talking about prospecting because a lot of people, when they think prospecting, they're thinking, I'm making cold calls, I'm talking to people I don't know. But that's not what I'm hearing from you guys.
it
I'm
can
hearing
be,
your
it
prospecting
can
is.
be, but
Go ahead, Jesse. I'm sorry.
oh no, you're fine. It definitely can be people that you know. I think there's also like when I got my license at 18, nobody just trusted me to sell their house. Obviously, like I didn't have any evidence of success, so it was great to work with the not mets and people that I didn't know necessarily, just because it helped me get that book of business and evidence of success behind me. And I think there's definitely a benefit. Like I'm born and raised from the town I'm from, so most people know me, but there's still people that don't know me, right? Especially if you look at the outlying area, and so having those conversations with non-mets I think is important. But I think that working your database is a huge point of value that most people don't take advantage of. They just put them in a CRM and expect like the automated text reminders to keep their clients, and that's never going to work. You need to do that personal touch.
Awesome. Tell me where you guys are at numbers wise. Do you know where you're at this year yet? In terms of deals closed for yourself and for your team, roughly.
I'm at 52 deals closed personally this year, and I believe the team's on. I think we've done I think we're at 78 team total production, I believe. So
we're about 7 months through. What about for you, Marco?
I think I'm at 45 deals closed personally. The team's got about 10, and then I think I have like 17 pending right now.
And what do you got in escrow right now, Jess?
I have 12 in escrow. Just locked in another one yesterday.
And one of the things I know about Jess this year is that how has changing your price point of your clients changed your income? Because all deals aren't created similar. So you've had some bigger months that you've ever had before this year, haven't you? Talk about that.
I've had some record months. I've been really blessed to have a lot of volume going through as far as deal count, but also the higher price points definitely help. Like I have 2 deals right now that are about $36,000 commissions. I have a $1 million assumable loan closing. So those bigger deals are nice. There's no doubt.
So did you focus on raising your price point, or did that just happen naturally?
I think part of it came naturally and part of it was just from my intention around it as well. Like, I think that specifically targeting the higher income clientele, like I said, so like the district attorney client that we're working with and networking with her and having her refer over, she referred over a divorce attorney that's got 3 investments to sell. I work with a lot of investors, so I think that part of that comes from just like helping my investor clients, and then, people are friends with, people that they're like, so my investor has 5 other investor friends that he's always talking about, me too. And then, making those relationships. And I got one client that has 8,000 units between him and his 3 partners. So.
Wow. Now I know, Marco, you've done some investment properties yourself as well, haven't you? Or flip houses?
Correct.
how did you come about those, and why did you end up doing those, and was it worth it? And
Yeah, it was worth it. I work with several investors as well, and they keep me pretty busy. But I think it comes down to be just one of those things that it's just everybody kind of has their niche on what they're good at. And I don't think that's my niche to be flipping homes. I'll do it as in just as an investment, but I decided to focus just on production myself. Um,
but you're not turning down a good deal when it comes your way.
no, no, I'm always ready to jump on a deal, always looking for something.
You know, one of the things I heard at Build is that one of the top agents, she has 3 listing appointments, but 3 listing presentations. But the last one's really about, hey, if you could get cash for this deal and close out very quickly, what is a price that you would take?
Yeah, and I do that for all of my listings. I always tell them this is, your cash price if you wanted to take your stuff out today and literally just grab what you want and go, or if you want to list it, or if you want me to find you an off-market buyer. So
Are you surprised when they say yes? When they get, I mean, you don't know who's going to give you that they're going to take the cash, do you?
exactly.
And then I encourage you guys, all of them in the call, to be asking that question. And then even if you don't have the money, who do you know that has the money? Who do you know that you could partner with on a deal? Because there's enough money in a deal. So people often think that, I have to have the money. You don't. If you have the money, if you don't have the money, but you have the deal, you often could take a percentage in that deal. And that percentage of the profit typically is going to be more than what your commission is. And you can usually make commission as well on those deals. So it's thinking a little bit outside of the box on ways to be making money. So guys, what are you doing differently now? The market's different than 2021, first part of 2022. What are you doing differently now? What are the challenges you're running up against?
So business definitely didn't slow down, but it got more challenging for us to be able to get the clients in, and everybody's a little nervous. So what I did from 2021 till now is I just hired more staff I invested more into my business, and that's been paying off pretty well. So instead of me slowing down on the prospecting, slowing down on, the staff or, investing into the business, I, added 2 more employees. I got a better CRM, and I just, instead of doing 2 hours for lead gen, I went to 4 to 5 hours every time. That's what I've done different. That's been working out.
What about you, Jess?
I think this winter was probably one of the most challenging markets in my career. I've been licensed for 7 years. I think that we saw like a slowdown across the board. Days on market went up. I mean, I was selling houses 4 days on market and 150K over list price. It wasn't challenging at all. I like jokingly said that like a toddler could put a house in MLS and sell it, right? And so we were kind of, I guess, spoiled with that really good market. And so really having hard conversations with the clients up front. I think I used to just be like, I'd kind of be excited by the challenging listing, maybe the guy that's like 600,000 overpriced and I'm still going to sell it. Versus now, rather than just listing that house at that overpriced, like having that difficult conversation with them up front and like being more conservative with my pricing. We've seen the market really pick up in the last couple of months. And so, I mean, it's gotten easier and easier, but I think that's what's like, I've seen a lot of the expireds that we'll list and then sell. That agent that listed it before us were like one difficult conversation away with that seller from getting the outcome that the seller wanted and they wanted, but they weren't willing to have that conversation probably because it's uncomfortable, right? But I think John, like you've learned, I have no problem with like being disagreeable. It's something where like I think I'm doing them a service by having that conversation. I think a lot of agents aren't honest with their clients. And so I'd rather have that uncomfortable conversation then. That's the script I've been using. I'd rather have this uncomfortable conversation now than 3 or 6 months down the line when your house isn't selling and you're wondering, and you're blaming me for not having this conversation. So I think that's something that's been really important. I also agree with Marco. Like I've hired another assistant. She's been phenomenal, like absolutely changed my structure of my business as far as like I can leave. I was just in Las Vegas for a bachelor party and I knew that all my bases were covered. So I think that's been a big point too.
Yeah. So when you're talking about those conversations on overpriced listings, are you still taking the listings when they're overpriced?
If they're like what I call like just not reasonable, like meaning that I don't think they're ever going to come to reality. Like my house is worth 1.2 and it's worth 7. I'd rather not work with that client up front versus before I would have been like, yeah, I'll work with them and, I'll coach them over time to get this outcome I want. It depends. Sometimes I'll tell them, okay, for the first 2 weeks, we'll test your strategy. But after that, we have to have an agreement now that you're going to listen to my strategy if it doesn't sell in 2 weeks. So it really just depends on how that client, if the client's in a must sell position or if they're just in I'd sell it if I get my, overinflated price. So
Are you getting the price reduction in writing at that point? So it's already done?
Ahead of time. So it's done and handled. Exactly. Otherwise I won't list it just because I do things differently. Like we help improve the client's properties. I send in my landscapers, my cleaners, my contractors. We invest into our properties to help them, and it's really helped differentiate ourselves between other agents. But like, I'm not going to do that if I don't feel like they're, realistic, if that makes sense, because it's not worth my time investment or the money I'm going to spend on the property.
I love what you're saying there. And I want to just spend a minute there on that. Is that it's one thing to have that conversation, but if you don't get something in writing at that point, then you're going to have that conversation over again because they will forget.
Oh, and they'll act like you never had it, for sure.
Right. Yeah. But when you're in that agreement at that point, it's not a big deal to get them to sign it, is it? Because they're just honoring what they said.
Yep.
Right. Marco, how are you handling the listings now if they want overprice, and what are you doing in that situation?
I hate to turn business away. If we have anything that's not very realistic, I'll just put something on the contract, something along the lines of if the listing doesn't sell, you're gonna reimburse me for X amount of money because I like to invest into my listings, and I always tell them like we all have skin in the game. Like obviously you're putting your house for sale, you're trusting me. I'm gonna invest. You don't have to pay me anything until the house sells. But we're all invested in this together, working as a team. But I think me coming in confident on anything and everything that I say kind of just lets my client, they just trust me and they let me just take the ball and run with it. They don't really question anything that I ask them to do, or even if it's a price reduction, they just tell me, okay, go ahead, Marco, do what you got to do.
Was that because you've really built trust with them up front? And you also understand their motivation, right?
Yeah, I always try to find, well, the biggest thing is finding out the why they want to sell, and then from there you can just take it off from there.
So is that one of the most critical questions in your listing appointment?
I think for listings, for buyers, for just about anything.
Walk through that a little bit more, would you would have like, how do you find that out from people? What are the questions you're asking?
So on a listing, obviously, or even a buyer, anybody that I meet, I always try to have a good first impression. I try to build a trust. We get along, we crack some jokes, and once we feel comfortable, then I talk business. And then I find out why. Well, why are you looking to buy? Or why are you looking to sell? What's the time frame, and what your budget is, and then go on from there.
I think you get into that a little bit and you start finding out what happens if it doesn't sell. What's the complications in your life going to be if that doesn't happen, right?
Yeah.
And get them to fill into that. Jesse, is there anything in your listing appointments that you feel that you do along with that obviously we're talking about that really seems to be able to cement trust with people, or gets them to feel that you are the expert and they're going to move with you? Obviously, you want clients that have some. I don't like lay down clients that just act like they don't know anything, because then later I want people to be invested with me in a process. So walk through what you feel in your listing appointments.
Yeah. So, like my clients trust me at a high level, and it's because of my confidence in what I do. But like, I don't just rely on like, just trust me because, I do this every day. Like I like to educate them so that they're on the same page as me and they understand the logic behind what I'm doing. So like if John, you were trying to sell your house overpriced, I'll bring, I don't just bring like a basic CMA and just go, here you go, here's my opinion of value. I like the numbers of it. Like I'm very analytical, even though I'm like a high D personality. I used to not really care about it as much, but like, and I was just confident in my opinion, but I like to show them exactly why I'm supporting this. And I'll show them, I use the pain versus pleasure strategy. So, look at this sale and look at the data that's important. So would you rather sell your house in 4 days on market or 5 days on market for 108% of list price? Or would you like to be this guy that was, 224 days on market, 4 price reductions? I highlight all the status changes. I show them at each point of the way, and so I get them on the same page as me, and I use the numbers. So it's not just their blind faith in me. It's also like, here's exactly why I'm thinking this, and I make sure that they understand it. And don't get me wrong, I have clients that could care less about that, but I still will walk them through it. It doesn't take long, but just to show them, that way they're not just like having that blind faith. They see why I'm doing this, and they can look at the data that I'm looking at.
Awesome. So, Marco, what do you think that you do that really, if you could name one or two things that you feel that really differentiates yourself from the other realtors in your market?
What do you mean, John? Can you elaborate?
Well, there's lots of realtors that people could work with.
Yeah.
And some people would call this my unique, my, what is it, Jeff? My unique selling proposition, right? So what is it about you or what you do that makes you better for them to work with than other realtors?
Well, I do get that question on listing appointments whenever they're interviewing more realtors. I just tell them I'm going to get the job done. I know exactly what I'm doing, and I'm doing this full time, and I've done this for X amount of time. So I think what makes me different is that I'm confident, and my negotiation skills is going to make it happen for my clients.
What about you, Jesse?
I think confidence is key. Like, I love that, Marco. I think that's an important thing. I've had clients that I remember I was 18. I had a client, he was like 52, and he's like, "You're the most confident person I've ever met in my life." And he's like, "Your confidence gives me confidence." And I sold him his third house. They're moving to Arizona. But like, I think that's an important factor. But I also think, like, I've done specific things with my business model to differentiate myself, because I'm a big believer that if you, like Marco said earlier in the interview, like, if you do right by people, I think that if you focus on that, like the monetary gains, all of that will come. So I do things very differently. So we have like non-commitment contracts. Our clients can fire us anytime during the 6-month listing period for, as long as we're not under contract with the buyer, but we invest back into our properties. So it's a win-win for my clients. So I always say, like, the worst thing you're going to get from me is get your yard, professionally landscaped, get your house cleaned, and you can kick me to the curb. Nobody's ever done that. I'd hope to never give anybody a reason to do that. But I think that it's an important thing, especially in this market, because when I'm meeting with people that don't know me, I don't expect them to just trust me off the bat. So it gives them it's like our 100% satisfaction guarantee. So they have the option to terminate the agreement. Like I said, I've never been fired. So it's just there for them to feel more comfortable, because they don't know me until I've earned their trust. But whether it's like junk removal, assistance with moving, we listed this place in Pleasant Hill. It was a 5-acre estate transaction. Grandma and her granddaughter were living there, couldn't keep up on it. I had 2 guys on zero turns, 4 guys pressure washing. We took, I think it was 3 26-foot U-Hauls, 2 20-yard dumpsters, and 4 20-foot cargo loads to donation, and got the house professionally cleaned. I mean, the place was like night and day. Absolutely amazing turnout. And the family was like in tears, big estate with like 8 family members involved. And all the family members, one of them had worked with me before on her husband's mom's sale, their estate. And I did the same thing for her there. So she trusted me. But now all 8 of those family members are sending me referrals. They're blown away. And like, the clients told me, like we got done in a week, what took them like 6 months. And it's just because we have a crew. So like, that's helping me get referrals. It's also helping me sell that property. I sold that place for, with 10 offers, 125,000 over list price. So I mean, overall, like, that's just like, it almost sounds too good to be true. But like, when I have clients out there advocating for me at that level, like, and all those clients have people they know and kids and families and friends that they're all telling, hey, like, if they're thinking about selling your house, you have to call Jesse. Like, no ifs, ands, or buts. And so that's been huge for me, just because I'm getting like a way above average referral rate.
And guys, where is the majority of your business coming from now? If you looked at your transactions, where are they coming from now?
Investors and referrals. That's 90% of my business right now. So meaning like repeat investor clients or investors that they're, in a relationship with, that they refer over to me, and referrals in general. So just from going above and beyond.
Yep, that's me. 90% referral and investors, 100%.
Now, guys, Joanne, we're going to come to you, but I want to ask guys, one of the things I talk to people about is the difference between a repeat client and a referral client. Repeat clients easier, referral clients, but I think you guys are getting a lot of referrals, not only repeats, but a lot of referrals as well.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah, tons.
And that allows you to grow your business a little bit more because you're expanding it versus a repeat client. Joanne, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you. Okay, that should work. So my question is, I like to feel like all of my clients are going to get the same service. So like if they say you got to work with Joanne, that person is going to get the exact same thing that this person got. And to be consistent so that people aren't feeling like they got shortchanged, somebody got special treatment or whatever. So my question is, when you offer that kind of over the top, clean up the yard and everything, how do you not get kind of stuck in the trap of, oh, hey, I'm hiring you, you better clean up my yard and you're going to do this and you're going to do that. And I mean, how do you manage the expectations based on your reputation? Obviously you have the resources and stuff to do that, which is amazing, which most agents do not. I mean, it just would be impossible for them to do that. But even on a smaller scale, how do you navigate certain clients getting one thing and other clients not?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think for me, it's about setting that expectations and like establishing boundaries early in the conversation. So as I'm walking them through everything, I'm a man of habit. I do the same thing. My assistant, like 6 months into working with me, could tell you like with her eyes closed exactly what I'm going to say on every single listing appointment. Like it's the same conversations over and over again, but it's because it works. And so if we're working on a house, I have full like scripts already ready to go, like for setting that expectation on what I'm going to do. So like that 5-acre estate in Pleasant Hill was definitely a bigger project than some of like our average project, right? A lot of times it's going to be a 1/4-acre yard that might need mowed, bring in some fresh bark compared to, 5 acres of overgrown blackberries everywhere. And, like that was more extensive, but that property specifically, I set that expectation up front. And if there's things that I'm not willing to do, like let's say, like I had one, we had a big ice storm here in Lane County, and all my acreage properties are like, people are still doing cleanup. It's going to be for years. And so like I had one where we rented a 60-foot boom lift and a 12,000-pound excavator, and we were removing, I mean, it was a huge, like the size of my office, gigantic pile of debris, right? But when I set that expectation, I told them that I'm willing to invest. I'll pay my guys hourly and I'll rent the equipment, but they had to pay for the disposal. So we split that cost 50-50. It was like $1,800 out of my pocket, $1,800 out of their pocket. But that cleanup was huge. And I got my heavy equipment operator to do the work for $30 an hour, which is a remarkable deal if you know anybody that runs heavy equipment. But so it was a huge win for my clients. And maybe 2 years ago, I would have just offered to pay for that entire thing myself. But I've done enough of those now that I set that expectation, and those clients, they had the ability to invest into it, and it was still a cheaper bid. I think one of the quotes that they had for the tree cleanup and like the whatever trim the tree limbs was like 10 grand, and we did it for $1,800 out of their pocket, $1,800 out of my pocket. They're stoked, they're happy to put the money out, but like it's setting that expectation. I used to just, I'll take care of that for you, but now I'm going to set that expectation to have them invest into it too, just so there's skin in the game for both of us, especially on those like bigger ticket items, right? So I mean that deal is a $28,000 commission, so it was worth the investment spend. But at the same time, even I always have to keep in my mind, if this property doesn't sell, they weren't in a must sell position, or if they decide not to sell it, I need to have some ability to like mitigate my losses.
So if it wouldn't have sold, would have you asked for that 1,800 back? Did you have?
Yeah, we already had that agreement in place. Exactly. So, yep.
But
Now I would have taken a loss on some of the
for...
other investment, but that 1,800 specifically, I would have got back.
So then, if it doesn't sell, 2 questions. If it doesn't sell, I mean, is it just a handshake deal? You're going to trust them to pay you, and they may or may not, right? I mean,
it's pretty rare. Like a lot of times, most of my properties, they're like, let's say if I'm not doing an $1,800 tree cleanup, I'm willing to take that risk of taking the loss. So it's not like I have an agreement in place. But with those folks, that was just a handshake agreement. My neighbor's in-law, or my in-laws' neighbors, I know them well. Like I knew they were good for it. But I also don't expect, like in the back of my mind, I've always had the mindset of they might not pay me. I don't know if that makes sense. I'm never going to put 10 grand into a property if I don't have the ability to do that. So, or if I feel like it's going to put me in a position of too much risk. So just being very aware of that. And
so do you get any like entitlement attitudes from people that are trying to hire you based on this reputation? Like, oh, hire Jesse. I mean, I know it's an offering that you're definitely taking advantage of and getting lots of clients for, but do you ever have the issue of people like demanding that you do stuff just because you did it for their neighbor and this is what you do and I need the X stuff done and you're going to do it? I mean, do you get that kind of attitude?
I haven't encountered it, but I also think that I'm sure there's clients that would have acted that way if I didn't set that expectation up front. So like I'm very proactive with managing expectations and like establishing boundaries with those clients. So like we'll walk through the whole house and I'll say, that's an example of something I will take care of. There's an example of something I won't. And if you want to take care of that, I have contractors that'll work out of escrow, but that's over my average spend. So I can't go there. But if you'd like to have it taken care of, I can get a contractor to do it and they'll be paid out of the proceeds. So it's just setting those expectations up front to keep that attitude in check, if that makes sense. So most of the clients are like over the moon excited that we're willing to do it. So, I mean, I have a story that I say on almost all my listing appointments, and I had a client that they had 5 kiddos, 4 of which were under 5. He worked at the sheriff's department in the jail, and she was an ICU nurse. And they had a newborn too, like just a cute little newborn, and they got animals, and they're like on 2 acres. And the agent that interviewed before me gave them a 48 item to-do list and said, call me when you're done, and I'll come back and take the photos. And so when I met with them, I was like, I'm sure with all your free time, you would love to take care of, all 48 of those items. And they like laughed because, of course, they're like barely able to get 30 minutes to themselves during the day. And I said, I'm going to take 47 of those 48. I always say I can do everything, pack your boxes, and I'm going to take that off your plate. And they were like over the moon excited because most agents are just coming in and say, yeah, call me when you're ready for photos. So I think most people are just like over the moon grateful that we're willing to help. But
it's good. I have one right now where like the son is living in the basement and the grandson's taking half the house and it's a complete hoarder's mess. And the 75-year-old mom who's still working full time because she's trying to make ends meet. And I'm like, yeah, call me when this crap is all out of the house and I can see what the hell is here. I wasn't gracious like you are and offer anything because these guys need to get out of the basement, quit playing the electric guitar, and help your mom get this place cleaned up. Otherwise, see ya. So I don't know. It's a balance, I guess.
Yeah. No, and I think that's totally fair. Like to be quite frank with you, like there's been projects that are just way too much for me to take on or would like take most of my resources. And I just have that conversation with them. Like I just tell them this has to be a team effort. I had one in Yoncalla. This one takes the record. I mean, 115 acres of 30-foot tall piles of garbage, scrap metal. The guy brought everything in by hand. We should have called that show hoarders. It would have like broken the record. I've never seen anything like it. But like we were in the middle of the cleanup and I've got guys on excavators down there removing stuff. And I think they took so far, we closed on it and they've taken like 40 20-yard dumpsters of scrap out of the property. And they're still, I mean, that's not even 25% of it. But while we were doing the cleanup, the guy that was living in the property would come out and he was bringing more stuff back. So he's adding to it. And so like having those hard conversations and saying like, if you're going to contribute and just add on to it, like I'm getting calls from my heavy equipment guys going, the guy is dumping more stuff like as we speak and they're sending me videos, like then going down and having that conversation with them just because at that point it's like, okay, we'll haul our equipment away. Like we can't have you continuing to contribute to the problem.
And Tammy has a question.
Jesse, does this allow you to be more steadfast about getting a 3% listing or?
Oh yeah, I take 3.5% on all my listings, and that extra half point covers for the majority of my costs, and I give a 2.5% buyer's agent commission.
Gotcha.
So,
and then how about your contractors? I'm sure, yeah, I mean, you probably sometimes face challenges with contractors not getting it on your schedule, not showing up, and now you're the one that has promised this service.
I treat my contractors like gold. They're everything to me. I couldn't have my business without them. And so everyone who works for me, like I not only refer them a ton of business, like I usually become one of their major sources of business, but like my flooring guy, very successful on his own right. His wife's my barber. He's like a hardworking man, but I send him probably a couple $100,000 in work a year between referrals and then clients that I have doing the floors on escrow. He just did a project for me last week. And like, even if he's very busy, like he's probably, if you called him right now, he's 4 weeks out. If I call him, I could have him here flooring my office in 2 hours. So because of that relationship, so I treat him right. I know that he's going above and beyond for me. So I'm going to go above and beyond for him as well. So it's all about.
I can vouch for, and I can vouch. What's his name again, Jesse?
Freddie.
Freddie. So Freddie did some work for us on our property up in Cottage Grove. And it's like, we had a few challenges. He's like, well, okay, I'll just go in there and get part of it done. Then we'll come back after the cabinet gets put in. No problem. And he really jumped around on our schedule part. with Jesse, you know, part of it is because of his relationship with Jesse.
Yeah, I've sent them a lot of work, but I think having that relationship and also not just expecting that, but having that conversation with them. And like I've had many conversations with Freddie, any of my new contractors I work with, I tell them like, my goal is to build your business along with mine, but that's going to come at the cost of like, I need to be a priority. And like, sometimes my clients are totally unrealistic. Oh yeah, can we have the house? I had one guy, it's this week. He's like, hey, I know we were going to list in 2 weeks, but can we just move it up? We want to get photos done by Wednesday. So, I mean, I want to make the client happy. And I told him, I said, hey, it'll be a challenge, but I call all my folks and where photos are happening right now. So like we got everything done. I had 2.5 days heads up. Right. But it's because I have those relationships. And sometimes there's definitely situations where like my landscaper, his wife went to labor last week, middle of project. He left me his blower. I got my other guy, one of the guys that's full time running his pressure washer. I'm blowing off the driveway. I'm like, you go, go meet the baby. Or no, this isn't important. But like, there's things that come up that like usually the clients will understand. And as long as, and I've had issues with contractors who don't do what they say they're going to do, and I stop working with them. It's that simple. It causes me too much turmoil. So like having people that you can rely on or trust, and there's going to be one-offs. Wife's going into labor. Like my landscaper, he'd show up. I know he's very reliable for me. So it's like, it's not like his wife's going to labor every week, right? So just having people that I know I can trust and are going to serve my clients well, and having boundaries and being willing to fire somebody, I think that's huge as well.
So Jesse, I have a question on that. It sounds like you get a lot of work done on the properties. Do you talk to other contractors yourself, or do you have your assistant do that?
A lot of times it's my assistant. More and more, it's just like my assistant's taking over on those roles. But I've also trained my contractors. Like my landscaper, I don't even have to walk the property with him anymore. He knows exactly what I'm looking for. I know I can rely on him. Same thing with my cleaner. Everybody I work with has a pretty good idea. Now, like the actual contractors, like a general contractor or a flooring guy, usually I might not be there at the walkthrough, but I am going to be communicating with them directly just so there's no misunderstandings, and that we're all on the same page. So, like if the work's being paid at escrow or if they're paying up front, all that stuff's getting talked about up front.
Well, I think that what I'm hearing, Jess, is that one is, and that's why you're able to get more money. You're actually he's getting a return on this.
Oh yeah.
So, most people are happy if they're getting 5% now and getting 2.5%, and Jesse's most of the time getting 3.5% on his side, and the client's not upset because they're getting value. So it's called that. It's the law of reciprocity.
Mm-hmm.
He's giving something to them, and what he gets back in return is more than what he gave.
And a ton of referrals because I'm helping them coordinate everything as well.
So, commissions and challenges with money is only when there's an absence of value.
Mm-hmm. And I know my value, so it's easy for me to act. And I've competed with this many. I had one guy, CFO of Richardson Hat Company, couldn't tell if he liked me or hated me for the first 2 weeks of interviewing with him, but he interviewed 13 agents, the 13 top brokers in Lane County, and he picked me. And so it's something where I'm happy to compete with people. And there were people in that list of 13 that were willing to do the deal at 1% or 2% and discount and try to undercut my pricing. But the value that I was going to provide was worth more than that to him. So.
Excellent. Marco, is there anything you're doing at that, similar things like that at this point?
Yeah. I mean, I don't do a lot of contractors that I pay myself, like to do like a handyman work, but I do cleanings on all my listings. I do staging consultations on all my listings, and the landscaping, pressure washing on all of them. And I try to charge 6%, 4% for us, 2% for the buyer's agent sometimes.
So again, I think the big thing here, guys, is that what value are we bringing? And we bring that value up front. And most of the time, Jesse's not spending thousands of dollars. What we're really talking about most of the time, it's $500-600, Jess, at the, little bit of landscaping piece and, cleaning, which and the deal too, guys, is when you're working with contractors, you can also pre-negotiate the prices down.
Yep.
Because they know they're getting consistent business, and then they're also getting an opportunity to create more relationships. So that's kind of thing when we get started so much in business, it's worth sometimes being more flexible about doing some things as we're getting as we're building our business and building our clientele.
Jesse, I have a question on your strategy on this. what's your liability hedge? Are these guys all just bonded and insured, and therefore, yeah? So you're
Absolutely.
putting it all on contract. This is
Yeah,
not
making sure that they're all
Right.
covered. I don't want
great,
to.
great, great.
I always jokingly say I'm not hiring the cheapest guy I can find on Craigslist, right? So I mean, these are people I work with every day that I know are
Yeah.
licensed, bonded, and like if a mistake happens or something were to come up, I know that it wouldn't be malicious in any way. Like these are people I trust at a high level. So
Yeah. Yeah, part of that is I think I knew your answer, and part of it is I also wanted to shine the light on this for anyone else who's considering this.
totally.
Please, guys, don't bring in unlicensed people who are not bonded and insured to work on properties, because they drive a piece of equipment across a gas line and blow up the house. You know, you want to make sure that that doesn't blow back on you.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, I think also this has been a learning process, right, Jess? And that
Tons of learning,
spent some
failure along
times
the way.
early on, I know, where he spent more than he should have and wasn't able to recover it all, and it became it's a learning process, right?
Oh yeah, totally. I had a landscaper one time, phenomenal guy, attention to detail, really hard worker, but he was more expensive than the landscaper I work with now. And he charged me $7,000 on a deal to pick up every rock out of the backyard of this house in Springfield. Now I was earning like 12.5 on this house. It wasn't much. So I had to have that conversation with him. I got the invoice and I was like, whoa, all right. So I said, hey Jake, this doesn't work for me. And I explained to these people how I make money, what I'm making on each property, so they understand it. So, and from that point forward, he didn't do that anymore, because I explained to him like, hey, I'm making $12,000 on this deal, and you just spent $7,000 picking up every rock in the backyard, right? And I mean, it looked great. The guy did amazing work, but having that conversation with him, so he knows, like, if he did that to me, like, okay, you'll make $7,000 on one project, but you just lost, $100,000 a year in consistent work, because my business will fail if you're charging me $7,000 for landscaping on a 0.15 acre lot, So having that conversation up front, setting that expectation, and being transparent with your contractors as well. But yeah, I totally had tons of failures along the way, some painful interactions. But I mean, even on that one, I didn't lose money. I didn't make 12,000, but I didn't lose money, and it was valuable to our relationship with that contractor. So
I think it's failing forward.
Yep, exactly.
It's failing forward, right? It's failing forward. It's learning through each experience. One of the things that Joanna Tammy asked was like, so when you're doing, so let's say you have a flooring guy come in, and obviously you're not going to pay for that. Do you negotiate with some of them to get the client to be willing to take money out of escrow when it closes?
So that's how the relationship is set up. So, and my flooring guy trusts me at a high level. Like, it's funny because he talks to me and other agents call him to try to get him to do work at escrow, and he won't do it. Or he'll ask me like, hey, should I trust this guy? Like, will his house sell? And like, I'll have that conversation about with me. He's like, I know your properties will always sell. And every deal he's ever done with me, he's always gotten paid on. So.
And again, most of the time, these contracts again are with that client, so he can sue them. He can do the things.
And it's also not his only source of income that month. I don't know if that makes sense. So he doesn't care if he gets paid in 30 days, 60 days, or 90 days. Like, he's doing very well on his own without me. So this is just extra money on top. And so if it takes him 60 days to get paid, he understands that up front. So I'm not telling him like, yeah, you're going to get paid in 3 weeks. Like, I think that's a totally wrong way to go. Like, even the deals they do get paid quicker, like, oh, we get a cash offer, everybody's happy. But setting that expectation that this could be 60 to 90 days before you get paid, and they charge like an extra 10% on top for the escrow cost. So it's incentivized to them. He's not worrying about paying his mortgage, and the clients are happy to pay it because they don't have any money out of pocket.
What I'm hearing through this from both of you guys through the whole thing is how critical communication skills are.
So important.
Yeah. And, we don't teach that in real estate school. We don't teach about, the truth is they don't teach much about sales in there. So what we're hearing here is like very little of it has to coming down with filling out the contract of being perfect. What we're talking about is how to communicate and how to have the hard conversations that many of our personalities may not be natural for. And the truth is, while Jesse says that, he doesn't mind having the hard conversations, the truth is, I know him very well. He does not like conflict.
Yeah, I like to people please, but at the same time, I think there's more conflict to come from not having that conversation up front. Like, way worse conflict where I wasn't a man of my word, and it just ends up being a disappointing transaction for everybody.
So for those of you who've met both these guys, they when you meet them, they're both hard drivers, but what you'll find is they're both super easygoing in a lot of ways. Like, they're not conflict isn't their nature. You don't find them being hard. But what they've learned is in their softness to be able to use their words in a way that is effective. And again, when we can learn to use our words in a way in love, really, and that's what it's about. You're trying to solve that problem. As Marco said from the beginning, I think about how am I going to serve people today? How am I going to help them win? And I'm going to help them win by having this hard conversation. I'm going to help them win. I'm going to love them in this situation by telling them things that maybe they don't want to hear. But how do I say that in a framework that serves them? Because I want them to win. So it reminds me to keep thinking, like, where do I need to keep upping my communication skills? It comes back to, you go back to the basics of how to win friends and influence people. If you haven't read Dale Carnegie's book, go back to it, because so many realtors are in this business because they're really nice people. Most of the people on this call, they're here because they love people and they're really good with people. The skill that's often missing is how to communicate at a high level when it's not just easy. I remember there used to be a course, Jeff, right? Harsh Conversations.
Yeah.
At KW. I don't know if you ever took that, Jesse.
Oh, I like that, though. Harsh Conversations.
And harsh sounds bad, right? But it's more a matter, it wasn't to be hard, but how do you have those direct conversations? How do you communicate effectively and cleanly with people in a way that makes them feel that they're winning out of that, or that you're even making yourself vulnerable at sometimes when you're saying those things, because it's a matter of, I don't really want to say this, guys. I'm really concerned. I don't want to offend you at all, but I really want you to win. Am I okay? Can I share this with you? So I'll bet you're asking permission a lot, you guys, about things that you're saying. Marco, do you find that? Before you have to say something tough, are you asking permission?
Yeah.
In the nature of you.
It's kind of an alley-oop. I don't know, sets it up for success by having that conversation. And rarely will they say, no, don't be transparent with me, John. I don't.
But it's something different when you ask them permission.
Yeah, it sets it up better. I agree.
So I'm curious, actually, from both of you guys, and Marco, let's start with you. So you both have a background in auto sales, which I think is interesting, because I have a lot of buddies who came from the auto industry and transitioned into real estate and then just like mopped up and cleaned house. And you guys are clearly doing that, which is awesome. And you guys are rock stars. Marco, start with you. It doesn't have to just be auto, but like, what is it in your background that you think contributed to the consistency habits that you have now that are creating business on the regular? Because there's got to be a lot of people on the call who are like, okay, like I understand all of this, but I don't have 17 in escrow or whatever. like what? There's a key difference. And the difference obviously is there's a consistency to the behaviors that you're doing. But what do you think that it is that like leads to that? Or let's just use this as a jumping off point. But Marco, jump in. I know, again, auto sales, you could start with that if you want, but like, what is it in your background that led to these habits?
In the car business, I would tell myself I have to sell one car a day. So in real estate, I jump into sky slope, and if that number is not 2 digits, we have a problem. My team knows that if that number ever hits 5, like, are we going to be laid off? Something's going to happen. It's a big deal. So I always like to see 2 digits, and I like it when it's over, like if it gets to 20.
Okay, let me ask a question on that. Like, real talk, because I want people to understand how you feel, because I feel like I have some connection with you on this. If you logged in today and you saw that you had 8 in escrow, legitimately, how would you feel?
I would feel like I need to get to work.
Yeah.
And I would probably get rid of all my lunch appointments, any family stuff, and I would lead gen.
Right. You just start clearing out.
Yeah, I clear everything out, and I tell my assistant, we're taking no lunches, no appointments, book me out for the rest of the week. And
right. And that's at 8 in escrow. I didn't say 1 or 0.
Yeah, no. That number's 5. If we're at 5, like,
right. That's like meltdown, like call the Pentagon.
Yeah.
Right. All right. What about you, Jesse? Like same deal? I mean, do you have a number where like it hits panic mode?
Yeah, I think honestly, like Marco said, like 10 deals. I know this winter I got down to I think it was 7 deals in escrow personally, but I still was sweating because that's not enough. Like it's just not where I want to be. And I also, I mean, I think it used to be the average realtor sold 2 houses a year. Now it's one, if I'm not mistaken. And I mean, I could not even imagine how bored I would be. Like I have rampant ADHD. Like I'm bored like 90% of my day if I'm not keeping myself extremely busy. And so like I couldn't imagine that for sure, especially with the team. And then, I got to keep my wife fed and, my French bulldogs, got to eat. And so, I'd be sweating bullets for sure. So, but it's a
I don't know how
different,
much a Frenchie eats, man.
the older one, Gucci's, he's 40 pounds. He's a little behemoth. So
He's
he's
going at it. That's
dense.
awesome.
Oh, yeah.
I love that. Well, and tracking escrows is critical. It's interesting. Jesse, do you feel as well like that I saw you nod earlier when Marco said that, like that auto industry of like, I have to sell a car a day, and you just kind of come over and you're like, this is the new widget. But the difference is it like pays.
I think I worked a lot harder when I was a kid. So getting into real estate, I was blown away by like people think that I have a work ethic and I still feel like I could be doing more. But the average agent just doesn't have that drive. I mean, I was doing anything and everything to make money, like working. And I remember clear as day, like when I was younger, I mean, I would buy RV like trailers, like old ones, and strip the frames and sell them for tiny home frames or like car trailers. And, like I'd be working in 100-degree weather in my backyard, stripping these trailers, getting the aluminum off, putting the deck boards on. I had like 2 of my buddies working with me. I'd leave school to go sell cars. Like my teacher, I'm taking Craigslist calls in the back of the room. Teachers are getting pissed at me. So, I mean, I think that having that background helped me when I got into real estate. Cause like when I joined Keller Williams, I remember doing bold for the first time and they were like 20 calls a day, do a bold 100. And that was like easy to me. Like I love talking to people, like making 100 calls in an air conditioned office space. I can do that. No problem. Like that's,
yeah, right.
Like, is that even work? Like, oh yeah, some guy was angry with me on the phone. Okay. Like moving forward, like just a different expectation around it. Like,
That's awesome. Okay, so separate question for both of you guys, and Mark, I'll start back with you. Like, who are the people that you check out? Like, who are your thought leaders? Are there like YouTube influencers or not influencers? That's the wrong word, but like, what's the content that you're consuming?
There's a guy on Instagram from Texas, and he sells, I think, like 28 houses a month, 30 houses a month between him and I think 2 or 3 agents on this team. But
Nice.
yeah, he's kind of not my role model, but definitely somebody that I look up to actively. And then I love talking.
You're like plugged in.
Yeah, I'm plugged in. I love talking to John. He's always pumping me up. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking forward to.
I love it. What about you, Jesse?
I like a lot of Elon Musk stuff. Like I'm a big fan of Elon Musk. I also like Ed Milet stuff for sure.
Mhm.
Like I'm a big Ed Milet guy. But I'm also just a man of habit. Like I listen to the same Audible books like repeatedly, like a psychopath for sure. But like it's just something where I like to ingrain it. And like I got my same routine, just put it on, like just keep listening. And I think I learn something new every time I listen to it. But
That's funny. Lexi calls me a psycho on that stuff too. I listen to the same book over and over and over and over and over and over. And I take notes and then I'll like read it in like paper version and annotate. She's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm trying to memorize the book. What do you think?"
100%.
That's awesome.
What are you guys doing on social media strategies? Do you have a strategy around it now?
Personally, I don't ask for business on social media. I don't really get a whole lot. I just try to be kind of just top of mind for people, for my sphere, for people that I know, and I just make it fun. We make funny videos, and that's it's just a fun part of my business.
You've evolved around that. So, I know you've done a lot, you've done a little, you've changed with it. So
Yeah,
I don't know if you have a full-time, you hired like a full-time videographer for a while, I thought. And
I still have him, but he does all of my listings, and so it makes it easier because he's in house, and I can, if somebody calls me and has a house ready to sell, I can have my guy out there today taking pictures.
and how many I mean, are you posting X amount of times per day? Is there a strategy around that?
We post, well, I like to post once a day, um, and I try to post on my story quite a bit because people will swipe up, or they'll send me messages and interact with me on my stories a lot more than if I post.
What about you, Jesse?
Um, I love Marco's content first and foremost. I think you do a good job of that. I'm always seeing you on Instagram, so you're killing it there. I think that I like to post my evidence of success. So like I used to post every day, like whatever I'm doing. I went pending on this property, went active on this property. I try to post like all my walkthroughs of amount on appointments, things like that, like showing more like the behind the scenes, like daily interactive stuff. But also making a bigger push towards like short form video content. So I got a couple guys on my team that are doing a really good job of it. So
What do you mean by that? Explain that.
like Instagram Reels and making more like short, less business, not less business focused, but also like more fun, kind of like what Marco was saying, like more less of like, oh, I sold 20 more houses this month, and more of like, and either educational or like more like entertaining content. If that makes sense. Get better engagement.
And so part of that, Marco, is you're saying, I don't know if people are calling me directly, but I know with so much of it being your sphere, um, is that just a way to stay in front of them? So it's almost like a touch.
Yeah, and people will see me at the store. They'll be like, "Oh, I see you on TikTok, or I see you on Instagram," and it just makes it easier for me to connect with people and talk to people. Um, so yeah, it's just
How much time a day are you spending on it?
not my assistant will post once a day. I think I forgot how to post, honestly. But she does all the captions. I We record maybe twice a month. We'll do 5 or 6 videos.
So you're putting it all together at one time to effectively, and then you're spreading it out over the month.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, we're talking maybe an hour a week or 2 hours every 2 weeks, so maybe like 4 hours a month on social media. I don't do a whole lot myself anymore, because I'm not very good at it.
What about you, Jesse?
As far as like time on social media.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've deferred a lot of it off my assistant as well, but I mean, I spend a good, I don't know, maybe an hour or two a day, like just going through on my socials and like trying to, because it is all about that top of mind awareness, like staying in front of your clients as well. So,
So we talked about referrals, guys, and referrals being so much of it. Do you have a strategy behind how you're working your database and your referrals? I mean, I know social media is obviously part of that, but are there other things that you do to be proactive in getting repeat clients and referrals?
I think
Uh,
asking for the business is key. Sorry, Marco, but I
go
think
ahead,
like
go ahead,
asking,
Jesse.
yeah, I think asking is probably one of the most important things. I know I was uncomfortable at asking the question, like, but now like I think it's became more ingrained, especially since I'm putting so much value into my clients, like asking them for referrals and like when they give me a referral, like having a whole process about that, sending them a thank you card, like explaining like that's the greatest compliment I can receive. I also think that our client events, we do like an event every quarter. I think that's been really great for like both like community exposure, but also like appealing to our customer base. We do a pie giveaway every year before Thanksgiving, web up a referral, we'll throw in a can of whipped cream. Like none of this I came up with. This is all stuff that like I just emulated that other people taught me how to do. Like one of my lenders did the pie giveaway, so now I do that. I think we bought 300 Costco pumpkin pies this year. But I mean, I have so much engagement from that pie event every year. I look forward to it. I go out and I deliver them. I have my whole team going out and delivering them. I have like my 50 VIPs I'm delivering pies to. I'm out on the back porch. My assistant called me this year having a beer with one of my clients. She's like panicking. Where are you at? What are you doing? Didn't answer the phone. She's like trying to get a hold of me. And I'm like, oh, I'm out back having, beer with Scott Finley. Invited me to a beer. I'm not going to turn it down to them. So I'm there having a beer. And he's like, you got 50 more people to deliver too. Like, you got to get those. But, it's something where like I get a ton of referrals. And I had one lady this year, her husband passed away shortly after we worked together. It was actually like, it was like a really eye-opening thing for me because like we had like a 10-minute conversation with her. I gave her a pie and she sent me this like long thank you text about how like, she had lost her husband and that, that meant so much to her that we had thought of her. And I mean, we worked together like 2 years ago, but a $6 pumpkin pie like really had an impact on this client. And like, I mean, it felt like it was really important and she like really loved that we thought of her. And I mean, it's just the little things that can have a huge return. And in that transaction, like she's probably sent me a couple of referrals, but like more than the referral, it's the relationship with the client too. So.
What about you, Marco? What are the strategies you're doing around your?
I'm with you on that, Jesse. We do the pies every year on Thanksgiving. And I like to just connect with people. Like if I get along with my clients, I'll take them out for dinner. I'll do fun stuff with them. And if I see them somewhere, I'll stop and talk to them. So I just try to just connect with people on a personal level. And also, we do send out like postcards to all my past clients once a month. So I think that's helpful to stay on top of mine.
I would think, mail guys is a critical piece now. Most realtors quit using it because, oh, it's expensive. But the truth is, people don't open their emails, guys, when you're sending them a newsletter most of the time. I mean, what I will tell you is if you can partner with a lender and use some of the HomeBot stuff, that is effective. Are you using that, Jesse?
I love it. Yeah, it's huge engagement. I can actually track a lot of my past clients, like who's going to end up listing their house or who's considering selling based on HomeBot. It's like remarkably accurate. Even if I'm not engaging with it, I'll go back on there and it's like the person that's engaging with me most is the person that calls me next week. So it's a cool way to get ahead of it. And it's a really great, like I've had nothing but positive feedback from clients. Like clients really like it and it's cheap. Like it's probably my best spend of the month. I partner with a lender on and I think I pay $25 a month. I mean, it's remarkably affordable for what it gives you.
Are you using HomeBot, Marco?
No,
I
no.
love it. Yeah, check it out, Marco. It's actually
So,
great.
Jesse, can you explain it to everybody what it is?
Yeah, so it's got like two functions. So if you bought a house with me, it gives them like market updates and gives them like an algorithm-based value, and you can tune that value. But it sends them market reports, and then it also like tells them what they have access to. You can partner with a lender on it, so build some stuff in about rates and financing, how much equity they have, and if they want to refinance. But it also talks about like if they're looking to buy, like what they need for the down payment. It just does a ton of things, and it's like all in a really like I love the user interface of it. Like it's really consumer friendly. Like I've got a bunch of clients that like, and it shows you like here's how many they clicked, like their engagement rate, how many times they've been checking their home value, and they can request a personal like a updated CMA. They can make all these requests in there, and it's a great
And
software.
you get reports on how often they opened and looked at it.
Exactly. So it's showing me everything they're doing. So I can tell you my top top user of HomeBot this month, and so I haven't had a single person unsubscribe from it. Everybody's had positive feedback on it.
So, Jess, if you get let's just say you add a new person to your database, somebody you become friends with, or somebody you want to add to your database, you can put their house in there as well, right? Even though you haven't.
Absolutely. Even if I didn't tell it to them, exactly. You can add to your database in there. So it's actually really easy to do.
And the other thing you can do is, depending on how it works out with the people that you sold houses to, if you have an email from them, if you're the listing agent, I would recommend that you put the buyer on that as well.
Totally.
So, Jesse, what CRM are you using?
Brivity on the CRM side.
Yes, I'm using Brivity as well.
I love it.
So, guys, how do you delegate your workload now? When did you start delegating? What were the first things you delegated?
Yeah. I struggle with delegation. I'm a high D. I still struggle with it at times, right? Like I like to do things and I keep myself busy. But like my assistant, like at multiple points when I first started working, they're at trust issues, like I know I can do something, but she would just take on more and more responsibility and she's worthy of it. And she'd go, I can take care of that for you. And like I said, I was just in Las Vegas and I was happy and content knowing all my bases were covered. Like had Isabel on it. She crushes it and she knows exactly what I do. If she ever isn't confident in something or like it's something that she's not sure of, she'll call me. But like, yeah, she's a rock star.
So you're both using transaction coordinators now, right?
Absolutely. I couldn't imagine my life without one. That's not what I'm good at.
And are those in-house or outsourced?
Outsourced for me.
In-house.
And you both use both. I mean, I think you both tried to have it in-house, and Marco, I think you've done it outsourced before.
Yeah, but
was that one of the first things you gave up?
Yeah, after my first deal, I never looked back and did it again myself.
But Marco, it costs you $300 to $500. I mean, it doesn't take much time. Couldn't you do it yourself?
No way, no way. Unless you're like really good at it, and that's what you want to do, and that's what you're good at, then maybe just become a transaction coordinator at that point. But it's just one of those things. I think realtors should be built to just sell houses or create content.
I think it comes back to is we like being busy, and we feel like when we're busy, then we don't have to do the important stuff to get done.
Sure.
And so it's easy to sit in that situation. So, guys, talk to me about what your goals are for this coming year, for next year, maybe the following year. And do you have goals around? I mean, when you look at your goals, is it around your personal? Is it around your business? Is it around creating assets or creating wealth? Because one of the things I think realtors really get stuck on is just doing deals versus creating wealth.
You go first, Mark.
Go ahead, Jesse.
Okay. I think for me, like I maxed out. Like, of course, I can always make more money, but like when I was growing up, I thought if you made $100,000 a year, you're rich, and all my problems would be solved. And when I made 100,000, it didn't. So then I was like, oh, I make 200,000. So I made 250 the next year. Didn't solve my problems. Made 500. I've made more than that, and I realized that it doesn't. That money's a tool and a resource. It's wonderful. Don't get me wrong. I'm all about building my income. I'm on track to have a record year this year. But John's really helped me understand that I remember the biggest year I ever had, like thinking, oh my gosh, I made all this money. But then you realize, okay, after taxes, overhead, and all the expenses, like you can still be broke, or you're one emergency away from, being broke. So I think that I've made a big focus on investing myself in more long-term assets, like using that income to actually like grow like true wealth, because like I've made a lot more money on paper than half of my investor clients like yearly, but their net worths are considerably higher than mine. So like, don't get me wrong, transactions are great, but I think for a long time I had like some paralysis by analysis of the investment side. And so like making more of a focus on buying investment deals myself.
So we had this conversation. Remember, this was 2 years ago. Can I share it? So Jesse has a young friend that went to high school with, and he was a flipper.
He flipped cattle, I flipped cars, and then he got.
But then he started flipping houses, right? And he never had a tax return that looks like Jesse's did. No. However, we got to 3 years, and I think it was 2 years ago. I said, "Hey, Jesse," and he knew what he owned. I said, "Well, what's his net worth look like?" His net worth was like 2 to 3 times more, wasn't it, Jess?
Yeah, absolutely.
And he hadn't made anywhere close. And I said, "Okay, who worked harder?"
Yep.
Jesse worked a lot harder. So we have to be keeping that in the back of our mind, right? Is that it's funny when we're doing earned income, we have a tendency to spend a lot of money because we think we deserve it. We deserve to spend enough. And then all of a sudden we get to the end of the year and we stay on that. And that's where a lot of top producers, guys, end up being on the rat race forever. Because they're not creating anything that keeps creating income when they're not there. What about you, Marco? So what are your goals for this next coming year?
Yeah, it's just acquiring more properties and just investing more. That's the goal for next year.
Is it to do more deals?
I don't think so. No, I think maybe this year and last year I came to the conclusion that it's just like Jesse said, you can make as much as you want, but if you don't manage it correctly, it really doesn't mean anything. So
100%.
And I used to think the same thing. Oh, if I make 100,000, if I make 200,000, all my problems are going to be solved, and I'm going to be the happiest guy ever.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be easy, but no,
it's not that easy.
It's just the same thing.
Yep.
And then usually you made that big year, and then you realized you didn't pay taxes, and you're spending the next year just trying to chase to pay your taxes.
For sure.
Which is a challenge. What do you think the biggest challenges are for you in this coming year to achieve your goals? What gets in your way? What do you see as biggest challenge?
For me, it's busy work. I think for me, it's easy to get focused. I know like for a while, like I work with a ton of investors. So it's hard for me to like prioritize my own investment, if that makes sense. Like, oh, I'll send this deal to Logan or Kyle or one of my investor clients. And realizing like it's not selfish for me to get a deal too. There's plenty of deals out there. And I mean, a lot of times I'm the source of the deal anyways. Like I'm looking at, different off-market properties. And so like not letting myself fall back into the, just focused on production road. It's just a different mindset, right? To look at your own investment properties. And it's new, it's uncomfortable. It's, it's just not in my standard framework. So I think it's important. I think that's the biggest challenge for me personally.
What about you, Marco? What do you think the biggest challenge is for you to reach your goals?
Biggest challenge is definitely being able to manage the time and use it at a high level. But I think we can overcome that I think I'm gonna just add maybe another staff or that's my biggest challenge is just time. I don't have enough time in the day.
Wish you could make more of it. My assistant's my clock. If I didn't have her, like she literally will glare at me so hard if I go over my time limit on my appointment, because she knows I'll talk to somebody all day. I'll sit there for 2 hours when it could have been an hour-long appointment. And so she's like, we got to go. Like she's looking at her watch, looking at me, giving me the death look. And I'm like, okay, I want to be in trouble. Let's go. So she keeps me accountable to my schedule too.
Awesome. Guys, we wrap up. I just wanted to, take a couple points that I picked up. Jeff might be able to throw into this, but a couple of things I heard was One is we talked about communication, of learning really how to communicate at a super high level. And that can be learned. That can be read in books. That can be studied and practiced. So it's not something that anybody can't do. It's just going to take some skill set. What I've heard is you're really working to stick to your schedules, to have what does your schedule look like every day, no matter whether you feel like it or not. I also heard that you're working a lot more right now than you did 2-3 years ago, and that it's harder. So sometimes that's what you need. I'm also hearing that, hey, learning to take things off your plate. Be willing to take things off your plate. So for some people, the challenge is, well, if I take that off my plate, then I just leave it with a lot of free time. Right now, these guys are so busy that taking time off their plate just allows them to go home at night. For some of us, taking things off our plate, all of a sudden we have a gap in our time. And the challenge is many agents today are saying, well, I'm just going to go to the beach, which the beach is great. Don't get me wrong. I love the beach for all you that know me. However, the question is, when we built free time, that when we're having somebody else do $10 an hour work, are we doing something else with that time? Are we spending time reaching out to our past clients? And, I know Marco's great about this because I'll just get texts from him. How you doing? And I know that I'm not the only one that he's doing that to. Well, I'd like to think I'm that special, but I know I'm not. That, how many texts a day is he sending out to, how you doing? And then if they respond and it's a reason to have a conversation, he reaches back out. So that idea of what are you doing with that extra time? And then the other thing I heard is that these guys understand when urgency is needed. So we talk about having balance in our lives. Well, balance is an illusion, y'all. Okay? It's priority management at times. So, for example, if, when their deals get down to a certain point, they change mode. They do what they have to do at that point, because if they're not making, and I can tell everybody, some of you are struggling today, if you're not making enough money to pay your bills, life sucks. And also, it's hard to do deals when you really need money. You ever felt that? So they understand that sometimes we have to be out of balance to be able to get back to where I can create space in my life. And that's one of the things I'm going to ask everyone today. If you're struggling in this market, and guys, don't get me wrong, this market is tough. To understand that our transaction count, while prices are holding well, but in most markets, the transaction count's back to like 2010. There's 40 to 50% less deals than there were 3 years ago. So it's going to require more work. It's going to require a different skill set. Most people are just getting upset and doing nothing. The question is, these guys are saying, look, what do I got to do differently right now? I got to put in a different gear to get where I want to go. But what I love that I heard at the very end, y'all, is that it's not just a money grab anymore. These are young guys. So the idea was in the beginning, it's like, how do I make, a fortune? Now it's realizing, okay, once I've solved some of my money problems, it isn't all about money. It's about how do I create assets? How do I make sure I'm creating better relationships? How am I learning? How am I growing? How am I taking care of myself? So I just want to thank both of you today for coming on. I hope I wrapped that up cleanly with some of the things you guys said. I just appreciate so much your time. I love both of you guys. You're just so special to me.
John, something that I want to add just for the rest of the agents is, not once have I ever complained about the rates, and I recommend for nobody to ever complain about the rates being high. That's important, because when people ask me, "Oh, how's real estate?" or if you're busy, if you're not busy, I've never once, that has never come out of my mouth. Oh, the rates are too high. It's too slow, because there's always people that got to buy, they got to sell. Families are growing, people pass away, there's divorces. There's just a lot of business out there for us to get. So
I've had so many depressing conversations with even top producing agents. Yeah, man, it's so slow right now. Like, rates suck. Like, it's just not. I'm like, that energy is going across to every single one of your clients. And I mean, like, you're not even confident in your ability to sell the property. How, like, your client's going to have faith in you. So I think that's super important, is to not focus. Those variables are out of our control. And like you said, there's always going to be people having a baby, getting a divorce, need a bigger house, need to move for work, right? Regardless of the rates of the market. So,
and most likely right now, guys, we're going to see the trending down. So they're trending down right now. We're seeing guys getting 30-year fixed, paying a point at under 6 right now. And know that I've been clearing out my boxes out of my attic. I was looking at things from 1995 and all the properties that I bought and sold. And guess what? Almost all of the interest rates were 7 and 8%. That was normal. That was normal. We never imagined in the 90s that we'd be down at even 5%. And there was lots of business being done. But the beauty is right now, I believe everybody putting in extra work right now. Again, we know it's 90 days in real estate, but putting that work in right now as we start seeing a trending coming down in rates, that's only going to enhance what you're doing. And at some point in this next year, we're going to see inventory open up again. And when that happens and the rates come down, we're going to see it's going to be easier again to do business. But if you haven't been doing the work today, it won't pay off for you then.
There's a huge opportunity to take market share right now, in my opinion. I think there's a lot of people that are just kind of resting on their laurels or sitting around and kind of waiting for things to open up. But I think the agents that are out there putting in the work today will have a huge percentage of the market locked down because they did the work now. So I challenge anybody who's slow to make 20 phone calls today. If you're slow, you have no excuse not to make 20 phone calls, 20 people you haven't talked to. It could be people you know or people you don't know. I'd encourage it to be 20 people you know and 20 people you don't know. You've got nothing but time as your advantage. And like, I'm confident in my skill set because I know that I could lose my real estate license in Oregon, relocate to Australia, and build my book of business back in 2 months. So like, just from prospecting, and whether it's people I know or don't know, it's just from relationships and having conversations. And you're going to struggle and you're going to say that you're going to mess up on the phone, but that's how you learn, and you'll still get business from it. So.
Well, hey guys, thanks again. We're going to wrap it up. And for all of you out there, I love you all, and just let's keep rocking.